Hello, and welcome to part 5 of the game dev tutorial that we're dealing with here. Our main goal is to spawn mobs and kill them. The steps that we're going to go through to do that are to create a mob class, update the draw on world to loop those, because it's going to be a list of mobs, and then we're going to create an imp class, because that's what we're doing. That's the first mob we're going to do, and then we'll add the art. The art will be in the provided materials. We are going to add a function called radial movement. It should have been spaced out nicer, but the function's name is radial movement to globals, and we're going to use it in the AI of the mob. I will provide a new globals file with that function in it. We are going to pass a list of mobs to the projectile so we can test hit, which we set up last time. We are going to create a delegate for pass mob, just like we did with projectiles last time. We are going to create spawn points, and then we are going to have them spawn mobs, should be imps, and we're going to update and draw those in world as well, and then we are going to kill the mobs. Alright, let's get going here. Okay, so to start out with, we are going to, as the prompt said, we are going to create the mob class. So first things first, inside units, right here. Boy, that got small, didn't it? Oh, and then I want to boost the font of the file. So it didn't save these, so I have to do it every time I open the thing. So, alright, so we have inside our units folder, we are going to just take hero, copy it, paste it into here, rename it to mob. Copy the name of it. Go in. Oh, and you know what? I saw something while rewatching my last video. We don't need this here. This is actually hiding the one that's inherited from unit. So delete that line real quick. We're going to delete it here as well because it's being inherited. There's just no reason to have it there. We can delete the entirety of the user controls because it is a mob. Yeah, we are going to do public virtual void AI. Okay, and the AI for now will sit called just like that. Okay, so our update, we'll call our AI. This we will end up changing in just a second because we're going to have to pass hero into it. Let's jump into world real fast. Let's get world. Get world giving us a list of mobs. So public list mob mobs equals new list mob. Okay, so now we have a list of mobs. That's great. We are going to pass that list of mobs into projectile here, but we are going to have to cast it because this is a list of units here. So this is just a quick thing to go over. So we can't pass in mobs, as you can see down here. It's like, no, we want units. We don't want mobs, right? So we say, okay, fine. So we're going to call it, we're going to call to list. We're going to cast it into units, into a unit, and that's that. Now it's units. That little piece of code right there turned it from a list of mobs to a list of units so we could pass it in. Great. While we're in here, let's add the add mob. And oh, I guess I haven't mentioned this before. Other than update being at the top and draw being at the bottom, my functions are all in alphabetical order to help me find them. You don't have to do that. I find it quite helpful. There are lots of times where you're searching through rather large files, and it can be very helpful to have some sort of organization. If you want to come up with a different one, great. I use a nice easy one, which is alphabetical order. So this is mobs. We're making a mob out of it. Oops, that was an extra capital there. Alright, so we now have our wonderful add mob. We are now passing our mobs into projectile, right? Let's finish up the delegate here before we move on, but that one's in games global. We'll do projectile next. Alright, so pass projectile. We can just do it this way because they're both pass objects, so pass. Pos, huh? That wasn't so good. Mob. Okay, we have it there. Now we'll set it here. Right, so add mob and pass mob. Alright, so we have our delegate, which points to this one, this function, to add mobs into this list. Now we'll loop them in the same way we loop projectiles for mobs, because they're going to have something. Ooh, we didn't add it. I forgot. We need to go into unit. We're going to add two things. A bool for dead, and a float for the hit distance. Yeah, hit distance. That's what it is. So hit dist. We will go over bounding boxes on another one. For right now, we are just going to use a distance from your character as the bounding circle rather than sphere in 3D. So we need those two things. We're going to set dead equals to false on when it creates a new mob, and our hit distance, let's say 35. That sounds good for now. Okay, that's a little bigger than our projectile, and that'll work. Alright, now back to world, because we needed that deadness here so we could remove mobs. So, come in here, we've got projectiles, now it's mobs. Mobs. Basically, you're just replacing anywhere it says. I'm going to update. We're actually going to not have that yet. And then mobs, but it's not done. It's dead. Mobs. So basically, as you saw, we just went through removing things. It doesn't like this because it doesn't have one argument. Interesting. Okay. Well, we're going to need to put this in, so we might as well do it now. These are updates. Just like we did with draw before, we can go through quickly and add in offset to everything. There we go, and offset, and now we're in hero. Hero needs that, and offset, and hero needs offset. Oh, we're in world. We don't actually need this here. What we need to do is use this offset, which we did create and then didn't end up filling everything out with. Okay, so that was quick. We just had to add that that parameter to our functions, our update functions. Great. Now here's the thing about mob. Mob needs to know about the hero. So what we actually need to do is we need to turn this to its own update function. So back to virtual from override, and then it's going to take in a hero, and then we actually want that passing into the AI as well. Hero. Now we'll do that AI in a second. Let's double check our world. We now have update in. It'll remove our mobs if they're dead. Now let's come down in here and delete the if statement and switch update to draw. Alright, so now our mobs should be drawing and updating once we put them into their list. Let's quickly finish up projectile from what we had before. So if you remember, go to definition. If you remember, we left this blank hit something right there. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add some code to here. So the units come through, they come into here, it asks if it's hitting something before they're done. So we have a list of units, so we're going to have to loop through that list. So let's start that. Int I equals 0, I less than units dot count I plus plus. Alright. And then what would denote hitting something? So we added that range, that hit distance, right? So that's a distance, which should tell us that we're doing globals dot distance, get distance, right? And then we're going to use the position of the projectile, and we're going to use units I, so the unit we're currently looking at in the loop, position. And if that, we need another one of those, if that is less than, so if it's within the range of units I dot hit distance. If that happens, then we're going to do two things. We're going to return true, meaning it's going to hit something and the projectile will finish and remove itself. And then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to do units I dot, ooh, I forgot to make this function. Let's leave this open so it leaves the error there. I forgot to do getting hit. So in here we're going to say public virtual void get hit. Maybe that should be on unit. Yeah, let's do that on unit. I like that better on unit. So here, get hit. If it gets hit, all it's going to do, I think, let me think it through real fast, is just say dead equals true. I'm going to double check with my prompt real fast, make sure I have that right. I'm pretty sure that's all I'm doing. Yeah, that's all I'm doing. Alright, so if it gets hit, it dies. There's no hit points yet. We'll go over that another time. Right now, we are just trying to make sure that we get a program that gets all the way through creating and killing mobs, and one hit kills is within that framework. Okay, projectiles, where did we go? There we are. Alright, so actually, let's go back here. Because I left that there, so I could just double click down here in the errors and it'll take me to that point, because I know I left that error on purpose. So get hit and return true. So the mob will die and remove itself. The projectile will be done from here and remove itself. Awesome. Now, we want to do an AI for the mob. We're going to do pretty much the simplest AI that we could possibly do, and that is we are just going to move straight at the person, straight at the hero. Okay? And for this tutorial, we won't have the hero getting hit, but we will later. So in globals, right, I'm going to copy paste this because I am going to give it to you. Globals, there it is. This one is called radial movement. This is one that you will use or should use a lot. So basically it gets a distance between the position that you are and where you're trying to go to, and then it asks if distance is less than speed. If it is, it just returns the distance, meaning that if the distance is shorter than how fast you can move, just go that smaller distance. And if it isn't, then we want to take that vector. Remember, this is a directional vector, which works for movement. Great. So a vector minus a vector is a directional vector. Okay? And then we're going to multiply it times speed over the distance. So the proportion of the distance that speed is, so let's say the distance is 10 and speed is 2, then it'll go 20% of this directional vector, which now moves you the exact amount that you need and not faster than speed. So if you were to move, let's say, speed 2 up and speed 2 right, that would be 2 root 2, if I remember correctly, which is much larger than 2. and so you would move diagonally faster than you would on a straight axis. So we don't want that. We want to move the exact distance of speed. This little function does a wonderful job of it, and we are going to use it right now. So let's jump down into mob, into the AI, and we're going to say position plus equals globals dot radial movement, and we are going to hero dot pose. We are pose, and our speed is speed. Now we have to do one other thing. Well, we don't have to, but I'd like to, because I'd like the mobs to face where they're moving. So we're going to say rot equals globals dot rotate towards pose. So that's the position of the mob, and then hero pose. And now it'll look at the hero, which is great. It'll move in the same position that it's looking. Cool. Mobs now should be done. So let's go ahead and create a folder for mobs. And we are going to take mob, copy, paste. I'm going to rename it to imp. Copy that. We're going to paste over. Oh. I didn't save it, so it's I actually grabbed the unsaved version of mob, which is hero. It's not a big deal. We'll just go to mob right here, and we will copy this function to override. That's the only difference that we're going to have between the two, I believe. So that, and then we need offset and hero here. And remove speed again. Okay. If you would have built your program before doing that copy paste, you wouldn't have had to do all that. But override. There we go. And this to mob. So that, there we go. Okay. So now we have mobs working. We have imps to spawn. We don't need dimensions because, again, we know what an imp is. So because we know what an imp is, we can say new vector2 and give it a static variable. Maybe 40. That sounds good. I think that worked well in my testing. And then the path that we're going to need is going to need to take in a image. So there's our imp. You see it looks like that. He's just kind of a little head with arms. Pretty simple stuff, but it'll work for our purposes. So I need a units folder and a mobs folder. I'm not going to move hero because then I'd have to redo it, but we should eventually move hero. Now we'll grab our imp, we'll put him in here, and while we're at it, I want to bring in circle into misc. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Circle X and B. Now, if you control click and get both of them, you can change their content copy if newer at the same time. So circle is going to be our spawn point, so that's why I grabbed it. Alright, let's quickly fill this in. 2D, units, mobs, imp. Alright, we have our imps. Now we have exactly one thing left to do, and that's create spawn points. So our spawn points are going to be, just pulling it up real fast, gonna go in world. So add new item, class. You know what? We don't want a new item. It's really similar to a unit. Copy. Paste. Spawn point. Copy that. I deleted this .cs on accident. SPAWNPOINT point. Done. Okay. It is a basic 2D. Eventually we will be able to kill them, so that's great. We don't need to speed it, doesn't move. We'll leave hit distance because, like I said, we are going to eventually be able to kill them. We want to have a timer, so public MC timer, spawn timer, that'll work. It's timer equals new MC timer, and what? A little over 2 seconds? That's fine. We'll go with that. And dead false, hit, that's all fine. All that's great. Down here in update, we need to update our timer. Whoops. Always nice to remember the semicolon. Okay, and then we need to test our timer. So, spawn timer dot test. And then spawn timer dot reset to 0. It has parentheses on it. It's a function. And then we are going to call a function called spawn mob. Now, that's a super simple function for now. So public virtual void spawn mob. But it'll become much more complicated. So eventually we're gonna want to do more with this than just calling a static imp pass mob, which we created as our delegate. New imp. Our imp does not need a path because we static variable it. Okay, let's go back. So imp, and then we give it a position. So that position should just be the position of third one. The position of the spawn point. So pose.x, pose.y. Okay. So that spawns. This one needs to call it spawn mob. So this passes a mob back to here, puts it in, and then I haven't been getting my text big enough again on all of the files. Eventually I'm going to remember to do it. Alright, we need a list of spawn positions, so public list spawn point, spawn points, new spawn points. Okay. We are going to add them. I say them because I plan on adding 3 of them. Spawn in our constructor. So spawn points dot add new spawn point. Get everything closed up properly. Now our spawn point, we're gonna have specific spawn points later. So right now we still do need to pass in the string. I don't want to do all that over again later. Okay. Let's see. What's our width? Maybe 35 is good enough. That way we can... Yeah, because our mob's bigger than that, so that's good. I like that. On the first one's position, maybe 50-50. And then we need our circle. So 2D, misc, circle. Okay, so we did that. We have a spawn point. I told you I wanted 3 of them. There's 3 of them. But we don't want them in the exact same places. So the height will keep the same for now. Here we want to do globals.screen width over 2. So dead center of the screen, right? That's what that says. And this last one, since this one is 50 from the left of the screen, let's make this one 50 from the right of the screen. So globals.screen width minus 50, right? So we have 50 from the left of the screen, dead center, 50 from the right of the screen, so they're well spaced out. Now, here's the thing. Right now, they will all launch their mobs at the exact same time. So we have that wonderful add to our timer that we're going to use. So let's say spawn points dot count -1. Now, this right here will get you the last entry in your list every time. So it's name of list dot count -1 every single time. So you should get used to using that. It's really helpful. Yeah, I can't even remember when I learned to do that, but when I did, it was like, oh, duh, I should have been doing that the whole time. So we added half a second here to this timer. Now, because we used last thing in the list, and it's the last thing here, then we added another one. Again, it's the last thing in the list, and we're gonna remove, say, 1 second from it. So now we have 3 different spawn times, and we are now going to add our loops for the spawn points. So let's just copy projectile for now, like we did before. We have no removing it, so we don't need that. And spawn points. So I'm just going to copy it, highlight, and we're going to go there, we're going to go there, and it doesn't have the list of mobs. So, boom. Now, we have to think about where we're going to draw this, because it draws in order. So anything drawn before can be drawn on top of. So let's say I put my spawn points at the end. Right. Oop. Not that. Okay. Let's say I do this. Right now my spawn points will draw over my mobs. It's probably not what you want. It may be what you want, but probably not. In this case, we want spawn points drawn before mobs so that the mobs are over the top of them so we can see them as they spawn. Alright, well now, provided that we have not screwed something up somewhere, this should work. So, let's load it all up. I will move it to the screen, and we have something wrong. We can kill them, that's good. But they're not moving. And I don't see my spawn points. So, first things first, I did what I told you shouldn't do, and forgot to put draw here. So that's one thing that we didn't do. The second thing that we didn't do is we are not getting this hero called. Make sure that okay, we didn't pass in hero. So we used the update for basic 2D or unit, not for mobs. So we should now get what we're looking for, and there they are, and they come after us, and we can shoot them all down. And it's not a hard game to play, but it is starting to resemble a game. If it had a way to lose and some kind of goal, we would be having a game now. So, awesome. So that concludes the goals for this tutorial. Hopefully you guys can see that it's getting to be a lot more fun, and we get to start doing things. You guys can take this, create some mobs that have different AIs. You could even just draw the imp and then add a color to it so that it looks different. Which, like, let's say you put a blue overlay on it, that would work. Another thing you can do is add different spawn points in different places. Play around with this for a little while, because we're at a point where hopefully you guys are understanding what we're doing, and it gives you the time to figure out what we're doing. If you like this video, please push that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Again, I'm trying to put out 2 or 3 of these a week is what I'm saying for sure I'll do, but right now I'm actually trying to put out more so that we can get to a actual game. Once we have an actual game, I will give the entire solution out, yeah, then I will continue to develop here, but you can do whatever you want with it. I figure maybe 3 to 5 more tutorials till we're going to be at a point where we can consider it a game. Again, it has to have an end point, a goal, and have a way to lose, in my opinion. That's my definition of game. It doesn't have to be yours. In order to be a game. So, right now we have enough parts to, if we wanted to, we could do it in 2 tutorials. But I want to do some other things as well. But anyway, this is the end of the tutorial. Again, like, subscribe, tell your friends if they're interested in this kind of stuff. I'm here to help you guys. Ask questions in the comments. I will be there. I'm going to try to do better and better about raising the font on everything. But we'll see how it goes. Alright, have a great one. See you guys next time.